I found out my children were banned from my sister's wedding, even after I had paid for everything. When I asked why, she said they eat too much. Before continuing the story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you won't miss more stories, and leave your like on the video. I was in the middle of styling Mrs. Patterson's highlights when my phone buzzed. My sister's name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer. Thursday afternoons at the salon are always packed. But something made me excuse myself and step into the back office. "I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her voice doing that thing where it gets soft and vulnerable. I knew that tone. It usually preceded a request. "What's going on?" I asked, already mentally running through my schedule for the next few weeks. "Can you come to dinner at Mom's tomorrow? I want to discuss some wedding plans." My sister had gotten engaged 6 months ago, and I'd been hearing about the wedding nonstop since then. Every family gathering turned into a planning session. I'd offered to do her hair and makeup as my gift, which I thought was generous considering my services normally run several $100s for bridal packages. "Sure, I can be there by 7, I said, then headed back to finish Mrs. Patterson's color. The next evening, I walked into my mother's dining room to find my sister and her fiancé already seated, a laptop open between them. My husband came with me and we settled into the chairs across from them. My mother bustled in with a tray of coffee and pastries, her face bright with excitement. "So," my sister began, turning the laptop toward me, "we've been working on the budget and we wanted to show you what we're planning." The spreadsheet on the screen was color-coded and detailed. Venue rental, $8,000. Catering, $12,000 for 200 guests. Photography, $4,000. Florals, $3,500. The numbers kept going, line after line, until they reached a total that made my stomach drop. $32,000. "This is comprehensive," I said carefully, scanning the columns. "Have you guys been saving for this?" My sister's fiancé shifted in his seat. "We've got about $6,000 set aside," he said. "But with the down payment we just made on the condo, things are tight." There was a pause. I could feel my mother's eyes on me. "We were hoping you might be able to help out," my sister said, reaching across to touch my hand. "You've always been so successful with the salons, and you're my only sister. This is the biggest day of my life." My husband's hand found mine under the table, a gentle squeeze that said he understood where this was heading. "Help out how?" I asked, though I already knew. "Well," my mother interjected, "you've always had more resources than your sister. You built those salons from nothing and they're doing so well. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Families help each other during important moments." I looked at the spreadsheet again. $32,000. I did have that money. I'd spent the last decade building my business from a single rented space into 3 profitable locations. I employed 18 people. My savings account was healthy because I'd worked 60-hour weeks for years, skipped vacations, and reinvested every profit back into the business until it became stable. "That's a lot of money," I said quietly. "I know," my sister said, and her eyes were starting to glisten. "But you're the only one who can do this. Mom and Dad don't have it. His parents are retired on a fixed income. You're our only option." The pressure in the room was palpable. My mother was nodding encouragingly. My sister looked desperate. Her fiancé looked uncomfortable but hopeful. "I need to think about it," I said. "The venue needs a deposit by next week," my sister pressed. "If we don't secure it, we'll lose the date." I felt my husband's hand tighten around mine. When I glanced at him, his expression was carefully neutral. But I could read the concern in his eyes. He'd seen this pattern before. My family asking, me giving, them expecting more. "I'll give you an answer in a few days," I said firmly. The drive home was quiet. My husband didn't say anything until we were pulling into our driveway. "You know you don't have to do this," he said gently. "I know," I replied, but I wasn't sure I believed it. That night, I lay awake doing math in my head. $32,000 from our savings. We'd been putting money aside for our kids' college funds, for a new roof that would need replacing in a year or two, for security. But I kept hearing my mother's voice. Families help each other during important moments. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from my sister. "I know this is huge. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I love you." I stared at the ceiling and wondered why saying no felt impossible. 3 days later, I called my sister and told her I'd cover the venue deposit and the catering. It felt like the right compromise. Help with the essentials, but not everything. She cried with relief over the phone, thanking me over and over. "You're the best sister ever," she said. "I'll never forget this. I should have been more specific about the limits." Within a week, the requests started coming. First, it was the florist. My sister called saying they'd found the perfect arrangement, but it was $1,500 more than the original quote. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, she said. And honestly, the basic package looked kind of cheap. Then, it was the photographer. The one they'd originally chosen had a scheduling conflict. Convenient, I thought. And now they'd found someone so much better, but he charged $6,000 instead of $4,000. His portfolio is incredible, my sister gushed. Everyone who sees it says we have to book him. Each request came with urgency. The florist needed an answer by tomorrow or they'd lose the seasonal flowers. The photographer's calendar was filling up fast. The upgraded cake design had to be confirmed within 24 hours. My mother called between my sister's requests. You know how weddings are, she'd say. Everything costs more than you think. But you're doing such a wonderful thing. Your sister is so grateful. I found myself sitting at my desk between clients, logging into my bank account and transferring money. $500 here, $2,000 there. Each time I told myself this would be the last request. It never was. The bar service needed to be premium because her fiancé's family expected good scotch. The chair covers were an additional expense but would make the photos so much more elegant. The string quartet for the ceremony was non-negotiable because they'd promised his grandmother live music. Every request came wrapped in justification. Every justification made it harder to say no. My husband noticed the statements before I worked up the courage to tell him. We were in the kitchen after the kids went to bed when he set his phone down and looked at me with concern. How much have you transferred to your sister in the last 3 weeks? He asked quietly. I didn't want to calculate it. Maybe 12,000? 15? It's 18,000, he said. I checked our savings account. The number hung between us. $18,000 in less than a month. I know, I said, feeling defensive and guilty at the same time. But the wedding is in 6 weeks. After that, it's done. Is it? He asked. Because every time you give her something, she comes back asking for more. He wasn't wrong. The pattern was clear even to me, but admitting it felt like admitting I was a fool. She's my sister, I said weakly. And these are our kids, he replied, gesturing toward the bedrooms upstairs. That money was for their college fund, for the roof, for our future. We still have savings, I argued. We did, he corrected gently. We had almost 40,000 saved. Now we're down to 22. I tried calling my sister the next day to establish boundaries. I'd rehearsed what to say. I could contribute a set amount total, but nothing more. We needed to stick to the original major expenses I'd agreed to cover. Oh my God, thank you so much for calling, she said before I could start. I need your opinion on something urgent. The venue coordinator said we could upgrade to the garden terrace for the cocktail hour. But it's only available if we decide today. It's 3,000 more, but the sunset photos would be absolutely stunning. I actually called because we need to talk about— I know, I'm asking for so much, she interrupted. But you've been so generous, and I promise this is one of the last things. The terrace really would make such a difference. Everyone would remember it forever. I opened my mouth to say no, to finally set the boundary I'd planned. Let me think about it, I heard myself say instead. That night, I transferred another $3,000. My mother sent me a text the next morning. Your sister showed me photos of the terrace. You made the right choice. She's so happy. You're a wonderful sister. I stared at the message and realized I couldn't remember the last time my mother had praised me for anything that didn't involve giving something to my sister. The thought stuck with me through 3 client appointments, 2 vendor meetings for my own salons, and dinner with my family. My 6-year-old son asked me twice if I was okay because I seemed far away. I was far away. I was stuck in a memory of being 12 years old, watching my sister get the bigger bedroom because she needed more space for her things. I'd been told to understand, to be the mature one, to not make a fuss. 21 years later, I was still being told the same thing. I couldn't sleep that night. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and my husband's steady breathing beside me. I kept thinking about that bedroom, the one my sister got when I was 12 and she was 9. It wasn't just bigger. It had the window seat that overlooked the backyard, the one I'd been dreaming about since we moved into that house. My mother had promised it to me. When you're a little older, she'd said. Then my sister decided she wanted it. I remember standing in the hallway while my parents discussed it in hushed voices in their bedroom. My sister was crying. She was always good at crying at the right moments. She needs it more, I heard my father say. You know how sensitive she is. I got the smaller room. I was told I'd understand when I was older. I understood now. I understood that my role had been established long before that bedroom reassignment. I was the reliable one. the strong one. The one who didn't need as much because I could handle disappointment better. More memories surfaced as I lay there in the dark. My sister's 16th birthday party, a catered event at a rented hall with a DJ and professional photographer. Mine had been cake in the backyard with a homemade banner. "You're more low-key," my mother had said. "You don't need all that fuss." My sister's college expenses, fully covered by our parents, including rent for a nice apartment near campus and a generous monthly allowance. I'd worked 2 jobs while taking a full course load, eating ramen most nights to save money. "You're so independent," my mother had praised me. "Your sister needs more support." My sister's first car, bought outright as a graduation gift. Mine, a loan I spent 3 years paying off. "You're better with money," my father had said. "This will teach you responsibility." Every disparity had been reframed as a compliment to me. I was capable. I was strong. I was independent. I didn't need what my sister needed. And I'd believed it. Or I'd wanted to believe it. I turned over in bed, careful not to wake my husband. The worst part was realizing that some part of me had been trying to earn their approval all this time. Every success in my business, every milestone, every achievement, I'd been waiting for them to finally say, "We're proud of you. You matter just as much." But that acknowledgement never came. Instead, each success just became more evidence that I didn't need support, that I should be the one giving it. I thought about my sister's graduation, when I'd given her $2,000 to help her start out in her career. She'd thanked me, but my mother had pulled me aside later and said, "That was generous, but don't make a big deal about it. You know she's sensitive about money differences." My own graduation hadn't even warranted a family dinner. The pattern was so clear now. How had I not seen it before? Or maybe I had seen it, and I'd just kept hoping it would change. Hoping that if I gave enough, helped enough, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me the way they saw her. In the morning, I was exhausted. I went through the motions of getting the kids ready for school, packing lunches, braiding my daughter's hair. She was 4, with my eyes and her father's stubborn chin. My son was 6, all energy and endless questions. "Mommy, why do you look sad?" my daughter asked as I tied her shoes. "Just tired, sweetie," I said, kissing her forehead. "Did you have bad dreams?" In a way, I had. I'd had the dream where my family finally saw me, valued me, chose me, and I'd woken up to realize it was never going to happen. My sister called while I was driving back from school drop-off. "Hey, so the dress seamstress needs final payment this week," she said cheerfully. "It's $3,500. Can you transfer it today?" I pulled over into a parking lot. My hands were shaking. "You said the dress was $1,500, I said slowly. "That was the base price," she explained. "But with the alterations and the custom beading I wanted, it came out to more. You understand, right? It's my wedding dress. How much have I paid so far?" I asked. "Total." There was a pause. "I don't know exactly." $21,000, I said. "I've transferred $21,000 in 5 weeks. "Well, yeah, weddings are expensive," she said, and I could hear the defensiveness creeping into her voice. "You said you'd help." "I said I'd help with the venue and catering," I corrected. "That was supposed to be $12,000 total. Are you seriously going to nickel and dime me right now?" Her voice had gone cold. "This is my wedding. You have the money. Why are you being difficult about this?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out. Because what could I say? That I'd finally realized I was buying something that was never for sale? That no amount of money would make her see me as an equal? "I'll transfer it today," I heard myself say. "Thank you," she said, her voice immediately warming. "You're the best. Love you." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, hating myself for caving again. The week before the wedding, I took the kids shopping for their outfits. My son needed a suit, and I wanted my daughter to have something special. We went to a children's formal wear store, and they were both so excited, trying on different options. "I look like Daddy!" my son exclaimed, straightening his little navy tie in the mirror. My daughter twirled in a light blue dress with small embroidered flowers. "Do I look like a princess, Mommy?" "You look beautiful," I told her, my heart swelling. I bought both outfits, plus nice shoes for each of them. The total came to just under $400, which seemed reasonable for a formal event, especially one I'd paid $24,000 to help create. That evening, I was putting my daughter to bed when my sister called. "Hey, quick question," she said, her tone casual. "What time are you planning to get there on Saturday?" "Probably around 2, I said, tucking the blanket around my daughter. The invitation said the ceremony starts at 3. "Right, yeah, so about the kids. Something in her voice made me pause. What about them? Well, we're trying to keep it pretty sophisticated, you know. Adults-only vibe. Very elegant. I walked into the hallway, pulling the door partially closed. What are you saying? I'm just saying it's going to be a long day and kids get restless. The ceremony is 2 hours, then cocktails, then dinner and dancing. That's a lot for little ones. My son is 6, I said slowly. He can sit through a ceremony, and there will be other kids there. Right? I saw the invitation list. Half our cousins have children. That's different, she said. How is it different? Look, I don't want to get into specifics. I'm just suggesting maybe you get a babysitter for the day. Make it a grown-up event for you and your husband. My chest felt tight. Are you uninviting my children from your wedding? Don't be dramatic, she said quickly. I'm just thinking about everyone's comfort. The venue is expensive, the chairs are white, the dinner is plated service. It's just easier without little kids running around. But other people's kids are invited, I pressed. I really don't want to argue about this right now, she said, her voice taking on that wounded tone. I'm stressed enough as it is. Can you please just work with me on this? I stood in my hallway, looking at the closed door to my daughter's room, thinking about the dress hanging in her closet. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, and hung up before she could respond. My husband found me sitting on the couch 20 minutes later, staring at nothing. What's wrong? He asked, sitting beside me. She doesn't want the kids at the wedding, I said. She called it an adults-only event. But there are other kids invited, he said. I saw the Facebook posts from your cousins. They're all bringing their families. I know. He was quiet for a moment. So she specifically doesn't want our kids there. Hearing him say it out loud made it real. Made it impossible to rationalize or excuse. She said it would be too long for them. That they'd get restless. She's uninviting them, he said flatly. After you've paid for the entire wedding. I couldn't argue with him because he was right. The next morning, I checked my cousin's social media pages. There they were. Posts about finding flower girl dresses, pictures of little boys in clip-on ties, excited messages about the family reunion aspect of the wedding. At least 8 other families were bringing children ranging from toddlers to teenagers. Just not mine. I called my sister back that afternoon. I saw the posts, I said. There are kids invited, just not mine. She sighed heavily. Why are you making this into such a thing? Because it is a thing, I said. You're excluding my children specifically. I want to know why. Fine, she said, and her voice had gone cold. You want the truth? Your kids are a lot. They're loud. They don't have table manners. At the last family dinner, your son spilled juice everywhere and your daughter wouldn't stop whining about the food. I felt like I'd been slapped. They're 6 and 4. And other people's kids are better behaved, she said bluntly. I don't want them disrupting my wedding. It's my day, and I want it to be perfect. I paid for your day, I said quietly. And I've been grateful, she shot back. But that doesn't mean I have to accommodate children who are going to cause problems. Other kids know how to behave at formal events. Yours don't. I hung up on her. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. My husband came into the room. He must have heard parts of the conversation because his face was dark with anger. What did she say? He asked. I told him. Every word, every insult about our children. We're not going, he said immediately. And you need to get that money back. I can't just... Yes, you can, he interrupted. She's insulting our kids, our babies. After you've paid for everything, this is where it ends. But I wasn't sure it could end. The wedding was in 5 days. The contracts were signed. The deposits were non-refundable. And some part of me still hoped this was all a misunderstanding, that my family couldn't actually be this cruel. I was wrong about that. I didn't sleep the night before the wedding. I kept telling myself there had to be a way to fix this, to make my sister see reason. Maybe if I talked to her in person, she'd reconsider. My husband thought I was insane. She's already made it clear, he said as we got dressed that morning. She doesn't want our kids there. Why are you still planning to go? Because she's my sister, I said, though the words felt hollow. And maybe once she sees them, she'll change her mind. He looked at me with something close to pity. She won't. But I dressed the kids anyway. Put my son in his new suit. Helped my daughter into her blue dress. They were so excited, bouncing around the living room, asking 100 questions. Will there be cake? My daughter asked. Will I get to dance? My son wanted to know. I couldn't answer them. I just kept straightening my son's tie and adjusting my daughter's hair bow, trying not to cry. We arrived at the venue at 2:30. It was a beautiful estate with gardens and a large white tent set up for the reception. Other guests were already there, families streaming toward the ceremony site. I saw my cousin's kids running across the lawn, laughing. I took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance with my family. A man in a black suit approached us. He had a tablet and a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Name?" he asked. I gave it. He scrolled through his list, then looked up with an uncomfortable expression. "And are these your children?" "Yes," I said, feeling my stomach drop. He glanced at the tablet again. "I'm sorry, but I have a note here that they're not on the guest list for today's event." My husband's hand found my elbow. "What do you mean? We're family." "I understand, sir, but I'm just following the instructions I was given. Adults under this name are approved, but no children." I watched another family walk past us. 3 kids under 10. The man with the tablet smiled and waved them through. "But those children are allowed?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I'm just following the list, ma'am," he repeated. My son tugged at my hand. "Mommy, why aren't we going in?" I couldn't answer him. I couldn't breathe. "Let me talk to my sister," I said. "This has to be a mistake." The man looked uncomfortable but stepped aside. My hands shook as I dialed. My sister answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello?" "I'm at the entrance," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They're saying the kids aren't on the list." "Right," she said casually. "I told you it was adults only." "But there are other children here," I said. "I can see them." "Those are different situations," she said dismissively. "How?" I demanded. She sighed, annoyed. "Do we really need to do this right now? I have a wedding to get ready for." "I paid for this wedding," I said, my voice rising. "I paid for everything." "And I appreciate that," she interrupted. "But that doesn't mean you dictate the guest list." "Then tell me why," I said. "Tell me why my children specifically aren't welcome." There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. "Fine. Your kids eat too much. At every family gathering, they're always going back for seconds and thirds. The catering costs $90 a plate. I'm not paying for them to gorge themselves. Other kids are invited because they have better manners. They know how to behave." I felt like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. My 6-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter. She was calling them gluttons. "So that's it?" I said quietly. "They eat too much?" "I'm not going to apologize for wanting my wedding to be perfect," she said. "If that means some people's feelings get hurt, that's unfortunate, but it's my choice." She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling my entire world shift. My son was looking up at me with confused eyes. My daughter had started to cry. My husband took my hand. "Let's go," he said gently. "Let's take the kids home." "No," I said, something hardening in my chest. "We're not leaving yet. What are you going to do?" I looked at the venue, at the white tent full of expensive flowers I'd paid for, at the string quartet with instruments I'd funded. I thought about my sister getting ready for her perfect day. The perfect day my money had bought. "If my children aren't welcome here," I said slowly, clearly, "then my money isn't either." My husband's eyes widened. I'm going to cancel everything I paid for," I said. "Every vendor, every service. If she doesn't want my family here, she doesn't get my financial contribution. Can you even do that?" "I'm going to find out," I said. I walked back to our car, my children's hands in mine, and opened my phone to start making calls. I sat in the car with my husband behind the wheel and the kids buckled in the back seat. My daughter was still sniffling, asking why we couldn't go to the party. My son was quiet, staring out the window. "Take them home," I told my husband. "I need to make some calls and I don't want them to hear this." "I'm not leaving you here alone," he said. "Then drive around the block a few times," I said. "Give me 20 minutes. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. 20 minutes? Then we're picking you up and going home together." I kissed both kids on the forehead, told them everything would be okay, and got out of the car. I watched them drive away before pulling up my phone and opening my email to find the vendor contracts. My hands were steadier than I expected. The first call was to the caterer. A woman answered, sounding harried. "Hi, this is about the event today at the Riverside Estate," I said. "I need to cancel the service." There was a pause. "Ma'am, the event starts in less than an hour. The food is already being set up." "I understand that," I said. "But I'm the one who paid for the catering and I'm withdrawing my payment." "You can't just withdraw payment," she said, and I could hear the panic in her voice. "We have a contract, the food is there, our staff is there." "The contract was signed by my sister," I said, "but every payment came from my account. I'm calling my credit card company as soon as we hang up to dispute the charges." You can't, she was stammering now. We'll take legal action. You'll be liable for the full amount plus damages. Then I'll see you in court, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. But in the meantime, I suggest you start packing up your food. I hung up and immediately called my credit card company, explained the situation to a surprisingly sympathetic representative. She couldn't reverse the charge immediately, but she could flag it for dispute and start an investigation. Next was the florist. That call went slightly better. The owner was more understanding. I saw the contracts were signed by someone else but paid by you, she said. I can remove the flowers, but I can only refund 50%. The flowers were custom ordered. I'll take 50%, I said. Thank you for understanding. The photographer was already at the venue. When I called him, I could hear the confusion in his voice. You want me to leave? But I was the one who hired you, I said. I paid your deposit and your fee. I'm terminating the contract. I don't know if I can legally. I'm not asking you to refund me, I said. Keep the money, but you're not photographing this wedding. If you stay, you'll be there on my sister's dime, not mine. He was quiet for a moment. Your sister is going to be very upset. I know, I said. That's the point. He agreed to leave. I suspected he wanted to avoid the drama more than anything else. The string quartet was harder. They'd already started setting up. The woman I spoke to was angry. We're union musicians, she said. We have a contract that protects us from exactly this kind of last-minute cancellation. You'll pay the full amount regardless. Fine, I said. Keep the payment. But I'm telling you right now that if you play a single note at this wedding, I will file a complaint with your union about harassment and working for someone who wasn't your actual employer. It was an empty threat. I had no idea if that would even work. But she didn't know that. This is completely unprofessional, she said. I agree, I said. Take it up with the bride. By the time my husband circled back around, I'd made 7 calls. Some successful, some not. I'd managed to cancel or create enough chaos with about 2/3 of the vendors. The venue itself couldn't be canceled. That deposit was gone months ago and was non-refundable. But the caterer was packing up, the florist was removing the expensive arrangements, and the photographer had left. I got back in the car. My husband looked at me with something between concern and admiration. How bad is it? He asked. Bad, I said. For her, I mean. She'll still have a venue and chairs. But no food, half the flowers, no photographer, no musicians. Can she fix it? Not in 30 minutes, I said. Maybe she can order pizza. Maybe someone has a phone with a decent camera. My daughter piped up from the back seat. Are we going home now? Yeah, baby, I said, turning to look at her. We're going home. As we drove away from the venue, my phone started ringing. My sister, then my mother, then my sister again. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear their anger yet. I was too busy feeling something I hadn't felt in years, like I'd finally stood up for myself and my children. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. We got home around 4 o'clock. The wedding ceremony would have started at 3. By now, my sister would know. She'd know about the caterer leaving, the flowers being removed, the photographer driving away. I put on a movie for the kids and sat on the couch with my phone in my hand, watching the voicemails pile up. 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, dozens of texts. My husband sat beside me. Are you going to listen to them? Eventually, I said. But not right now. Not while the kids are awake. He nodded and pulled me against his side. We sat there like that, pretending to watch the animated movie while my phone continued to buzz. At 7:30, after the kids were in bed, I finally opened my voicemail. The first one was from my mother, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to call me back right now. Your sister is devastated. The wedding is ruined. Ruined. Call me back. The second was from my sister, and she was crying. How could you do this to me? On my wedding day. You destroyed everything. The caterer left, the florist took half the flowers. Everyone is asking what happened. You've humiliated me in front of everyone I love. I will never forgive you for this. Never. The third was my mother again, this time shouting. You are selfish and cruel. Your sister did nothing to deserve this. Nothing. She just wanted a beautiful wedding and you've destroyed it because of some petty grudge. Don't bother calling back. Don't bother showing your face at any family event ever again. There were more. My sister's fiancé, calling me names I won't repeat. My mother, alternating between rage and guilt trips. One of my aunts who'd apparently been filled in on a very one-sided version of events. Then, around voicemail number 12, something changed. It was one of my cousins, the one with 3 kids who'd been allowed into the wedding. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, people are asking questions about why your kids specifically weren't invited. Your mom tried to say it was an adults-only wedding, but everyone could see that wasn't true. Multiple people are asking what really happened. I thought you should know. Also, what your sister said about your kids was really awful. A lot of people heard her screaming at your mom about it. I'm sorry this happened. The next voicemail was from another cousin. Your sister is telling everyone you backed out of paying for the wedding at the last minute because you're jealous of her. But the vendors are saying that's not what happened. They're saying you only canceled after you found out your kids were banned. People are putting two and two together. I sat there, listening to voicemail after voicemail, and realized that the story was getting out. Not my sister's version, the real version. Around 9 o'clock, my phone rang again. This time it was my father. I answered. Dad, I said. What the hell happened today? He asked. His voice was tired, not angry. Did Mom tell you? I asked. She told me you canceled everything and ruined the wedding, he said. But I've been hearing other things. From other family members. About your kids. I took a deep breath. My children were specifically banned from the wedding. Only my children. I was told it was because they eat too much and would embarrass her. Meanwhile, 8 other families brought their kids. I paid for $24,000 of that wedding. Dad. And my own children weren't allowed to attend. There was a long silence. 24,000? He said finally. Yes. Your mother said you'd offered to chip in a couple thousand. I paid for almost everything, I said. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, the music, everything. And when I showed up with my kids, they were turned away at the door. Another long silence. I didn't know, he said quietly. I know you didn't, I said. But now you do. He hung up without saying goodbye. The texts started coming in around 10, from cousins, from old family friends, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were supportive. Some were asking for my side of the story. A few were hostile, clearly getting their information from my mother or sister. My husband read over my shoulder. You're going viral, he said. In the worst possible way, I replied. Maybe not, he said. Look at this one. It was from my aunt, my mother's sister. Your mother just called me to complain about what you did. But when I asked why your kids weren't invited, she couldn't give me a straight answer. Then I talked to your cousin who was there. I am absolutely disgusted by what your sister said about your children. You did the right thing. Those babies are precious, and anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't deserve a minute of your time or a penny of your money. I started crying. Not sad tears, but something else. Relief, maybe? Validation. They know, I said to my husband. Everyone knows what she did. Good, he said firmly. Let them know. Let everyone know exactly what kind of person she is. That night, lying in bed, I thought about my sister's perfect wedding that wasn't perfect anymore. About how she'd have to explain to everyone why half her vendors left. About how she'd have to face questions about why my children were banned. I should have felt guilty. Part of me expected to feel guilty. But I didn't. I felt free. The week after the wedding was chaos. My phone never stopped ringing. My email filled with messages from family members. Social media became a battlefield. My sister posted a long emotional message about how her wedding had been sabotaged by someone she trusted. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew. The comment section filled with sympathy, until people who'd been at the wedding started chiming in with questions. Why were some kids allowed and others not? Is it true the bride's sister paid for everything? I heard the bride said something really cruel about her sister's children. My sister deleted the post after 2 hours. My mother called me Monday morning. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You've made your point, she said coldly. Now it's time to fix this. Fix what? I asked. This mess. This family drama. You need to apologize to your sister and make this right. I actually laughed. Apologize for what? For not letting her humiliate my children? She didn't humiliate anyone. My mother snapped. She made a decision about her wedding. You're the one who made it into drama by canceling everything. After she banned my kids while allowing everyone else's, I said, after I paid for the entire wedding. Money doesn't give you control over someone's special day, my mother said. And being my sister doesn't give her the right to insult my children, I replied. There was a pause. When my mother spoke again, her voice had that manipulative sweetness I'd heard my whole life. Sweetheart, I know you're hurt, but your sister is devastated. Can't you be the bigger person here? Just call her and smooth things over? Be the bigger person, I repeated. That's what you've always told me. Be mature. Be understanding. Sacrifice for your sister. Because you're capable of it, my mother said. You're stronger than she is. No, I said quietly. I'm done being the strong one who has to give up everything. You're being selfish, my mother said, her voice hardening. Good, I said. Maybe it's time I was. I hung up on her. It was the first time I'd ever done that. By Wednesday, screenshots were circulating. Someone had saved my sister's deleted post. Someone else had posted about overhearing my sister's comment about my kids. The story was spreading beyond just family. Friends of friends were commenting, strangers weighing in. My sister's fiancé sent me a threatening email about lawyers and damages. I forwarded it to my own attorney. She called within an hour. Do they have any grounds? I asked. Doubtful, she said. You paid for services, then canceled them. You might lose some deposits, but you won't pay damages. And honestly, if they sue, Discovery makes all this public record. Do they really want that? I forwarded her response. He didn't reply. My father called Thursday. Your mother wants a family meeting to talk this through. There's nothing to talk through, I said. Please, he said, sounding tired. Said, just come. Hear what everyone has to say. Something in his voice made me agree. The meeting was set for Saturday at my parents' house. My husband insisted on coming. When we arrived, the house was tense. My sister and her new husband sat on one couch, my mother on the other. My father stood by the window. My mother started before I sat down. We're here to resolve this. What happened at the wedding was unfortunate. Unfortunate? I interrupted. Let me finish, my mother said sharply. It was unfortunate, but the way you handled it was wrong. You embarrassed your sister. You ruined her special day. Now you need to make amends. By doing what? I asked. By acknowledging that you overreacted, my sister said. Her eyes were red, voice hard. By admitting you sabotaged my wedding out of spite. I looked at her for a long moment, at my sister, who I'd spent my whole life trying to please. You told me my children eat too much, I said quietly. You said they would embarrass you. You banned them from a wedding I paid $24,000 to make happen. I was trying to maintain a certain atmosphere, she said. It wasn't personal. It was completely personal, I said. And now you want me to apologize to you? Yes, my mother said. You're the adult here. You should have handled this privately. My husband's hand found mine. When I looked at him, he nodded. Stand your ground. I'm not apologizing, I said. I'm not paying for another wedding. I'm not pretending this didn't happen. I'm walking away from all of you. I stood up. My husband stood with me. If you leave now, my mother said, you're choosing to destroy this family. No, I said, turning to look at her. You destroyed it when you taught one daughter she was worth more than the other. I'm just finally accepting that truth. We walked out. Behind us, I could hear my sister crying and my mother calling my name. I didn't look back. The days after I walked out of my parents' house were strange. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit, for the regret to settle in. It never did. Instead, I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't even realized was there until I finally set it down. My mother tried calling 47 times in the first week. I blocked her number. Then she started calling from my father's phone. I blocked that too. She sent emails that I deleted without reading. She showed up at my salon twice. My staff had instructions to turn her away. The third time she appeared, I was there. I walked out of my office and found her in the waiting area, looking smaller than I remembered. We need to talk, she said. We don't, I replied. I made myself clear. I'm done. You can't just cut off your family, she said, her voice rising. I'm your mother. You're the woman who spent my entire life telling me I wasn't enough unless I was giving something to my sister, I said quietly. That's not the same thing as being a mother. Other clients in the salon were watching now. My mother noticed and lowered her voice. Please, she said. Your sister is having a really hard time. The marriage is already struggling. She needs her family right now. Something in me snapped. I have needed my family my entire life. Where were you then? She opened her mouth, closed it. She had no answer. I need you to leave, I said. And if you come back, I'll call the police for trespassing. She left. I watched her walk to her car, part of me hoping she'd turn around, come back, finally say the words I'd spent decades waiting to hear. She didn't. My husband helped me change our will. We removed my parents and sister as beneficiaries entirely. Everything would go to our children, with my husband as executor. We set up trusts, updated our insurance policies, made sure our wishes were crystal clear. How do you feel about it? My husband asked after we signed the papers. Free, I said. And I meant it. My father called once, about 2 months after the wedding. I answered because I'd never blocked his number. I understand why you're angry, he said without preamble. Your mother told me more about what happened, about the things your sister said. And? I asked, waiting for the excuse, the justification. And I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I let your mother create this dynamic between you and your sister. I thought I was staying neutral, but I was just enabling it. I sat down surprised. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've been thinking, he said. About all the times I watched your mother give your sister everything while you worked for scraps of approval. About how I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere. I was wrong. Yes, I said. You were. I know you've cut them off, he said. Your mother and sister. I'm not asking you to change that. But I want you to know, I see it now. I see what they did to you. And I'm sorry. It was the apology I'd waited for. But it came too late. Thank you for saying that, I said. But it doesn't change anything. I know, he said quietly. I just wanted you to know. We talked for a few more minutes. Stiff and awkward. Before we hung up, he asked about the kids. I told him they were fine, thriving even. He asked if he could see them sometime. Maybe, I said. I need to think about it. I never called him back about it. That maybe became never. Became a boundary I wasn't ready to cross. My business grew. Without the constant drain of family drama, I had energy to invest in expansion. I opened a 4th location. I hired 2 more managers. I started a training program for young stylists, paying them fair wages while they learned. The money I'd spent on my sister's wedding, the money I'd lost in non-refundable deposits, hurt less than I expected. It was an expensive lesson, but I'd learned it. I couldn't buy love or respect. Either people gave it freely or they didn't have it to give. My kids flourished. My son joined Little League. My daughter started ballet. Neither of them asked about my family after the first few weeks. Why don't we see Grandma anymore? My son asked once. Because Grandma made choices that hurt us, I said simply. And we don't spend time with people who hurt us. He seemed to accept that. My husband and I started going to couples counseling, not because we were struggling, but because we wanted to make sure we didn't repeat the patterns I'd grown up with. We wanted our kids to see healthy boundaries, healthy communication, healthy love. The therapist asked me once if I felt guilty about cutting off my family. No, I said. And it was true. I feel sad sometimes. Sad for what could have been, but not guilty. They made their choices. I made mine. 6 months after the wedding, I got a message from my sister. Not directly. She was still blocked, but through a mutual cousin who didn't know better. She wants you to know she's sorry, the message said. She knows she messed up. She wants to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe it. Wanted to believe she'd finally understood what she'd done. What she'd been doing for years. But I'd learned that wanting something didn't make it real. I sent back a simple message. Tell her I received her apology. I don't need to talk about it. That was the last I heard from her. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't waiting for any of them. I was finally, fully, living my own life. A year after the wedding, I was reviewing quarterly reports when one of my managers knocked on the door. There's someone here to see you, she said. She doesn't have an appointment. Your cousin Claire. I hadn't seen Claire since the wedding. We'd exchanged a few messages, but then life had moved on. I told my manager to send her in. Claire looked good. Older, with lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. She hugged me. I should have come sooner, she said, sitting across from my desk. I wanted to see how you were doing. I'm doing well, I said, and I meant it. The business is growing. The kids are happy. I can see that, she said, looking around my larger office with windows overlooking the street. You deserve it. We talked about surface things, her job, her kids. Then she got to what she'd really come to say. I saw your mother last week. She asked about you. What did you tell her? That you're thriving. She didn't like that. I could imagine. My mother had always needed me to need her. Your sister's getting divorced, Claire added. Did you know? I hadn't blocked all family information. No. 6 months in, and they're separated. He couldn't handle the drama. The way she talked about him. The way she needed everything perfect. It wore him down. I felt a flicker of validation. The same patterns that had poisoned my relationship with my sister had poisoned her marriage too. Your mother keeps saying if you just apologized, the marriage wouldn't have failed, Claire continued. She's made you the villain of every story. That's easier than admitting she created the problem, I said. Claire nodded. Not everyone believes her version. A lot of us see what really happened. After Claire left, I thought about my sister's failed marriage, my mother's denial, the family narrative painting me as cruel, and I realized it didn't hurt anymore. That evening, we had our Friday dinner, a tradition we'd started after cutting off my family. My husband, the kids, and me around the table with no phones, no TV, just us. "Tell me something good from this week," I said to my son, now 7. "I hit a home run at practice," he said, beaming. "Coach said it was the best hit he'd seen all season." "That's amazing," I said, ruffling his hair. My daughter, 5 now, bounced in her seat. "I learned a new dance. Want to see?" She demonstrated right there in the dining room. We applauded, and she took a dramatic bow. My husband caught my eye across the table. He smiled, and I smiled back. This was family. This simple, loving, drama-free existence. The salon continued to grow. I hired a woman named Kay who reminded me of myself at 23. Driven, talented, struggling to afford beauty school. I paid her tuition and gave her a job. Within 2 years, she managed one of my locations. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked once. Overwhelmed. "Because someone should have done it for me," I said. "And because you're worth investing in." I started mentoring other young women too. Some from beauty school, some who came as clients and mentioned struggling with toxic relationships. People who took more than they gave. I shared my story when it felt right. Not for sympathy, but as evidence that you could walk away and survive. That you could thrive. My kids never asked about my parents or sister anymore. They had friends whose grandparents spoiled them, and sometimes I saw curiosity in their eyes. But they also saw me, calm, present, available in ways I never could have been if I'd still been tangled up in that toxic dynamic. "Mom," my son asked one day while I drove him to practice, "do you ever miss your mom?" I thought carefully. "I miss the mom I wish I'd had," I said. "The one who would have loved me without conditions. But the actual person? No, I don't miss her." He nodded, processing. "That makes sense." The business expanded to a 5th location, then a 6th. I bought the building where my first salon had been rented space. My name was on the deed, my success undeniable. I thought sometimes about running into my sister somewhere. A grocery store, a restaurant. I played out scenarios in my head. But it never happened. Our lives had diverged completely. I was okay with that. 2 years after the wedding, my husband and I took the kids to California. We spent a week at the beach, building sandcastles, teaching them to boogie board, eating ice cream and watching sunsets. On our last night, after the kids were asleep, my husband and I sat on the balcony overlooking the ocean. "Are you happy?" he asked. I didn't have to think about it. "Yes, completely." "No regrets?" "About cutting them off?" I shook my head. "None. Best decision I ever made. Second best anyway." "What's the first?" I smiled. "Marrying you." He laughed and pulled me close. We sat there listening to the waves. And I felt profound gratitude for this life I'd built. Not despite losing my family, but because I'd had the courage to let them go. I'd learned that family wasn't about blood. It was about respect, love, and showing up for each other. And I had that now. Finally, truly, I had that. 3 years after the wedding that changed everything, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? Is this—" There was a pause, a shaky breath. "This is your father. Please don't hang up." I hadn't spoken to him since that one call years ago. "What do you want?" "Your mother is sick," he said. "Cancer. Stage 3. She's starting treatment next week. She wants to see you. And the kids." I sat very still. "I'm sorry to hear that. Will you come?" he asked. "Please." "No," I said simply. "She's your mother," he said, desperation in his voice. "She's sick. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means she has cancer," I said. "It doesn't change what she did." "What she continues to do. She regrets how things ended," he said. "Does she?" I asked. "Or does she regret that I won't come running back now that she needs something?" He was quiet. "I spent my entire life being what she needed," I continued. "Being the strong one, the one who sacrificed so my sister could have everything. I'm done. Cancer doesn't change the fact that she made her choices. So you're just going to let her die without saying goodbye?" "She said goodbye to me years ago," I replied, "when she chose to protect my sister instead of my children. She made her decision. I've made mine." I hung up. My husband found me by the window. "Who was that?" "My father. My mother has cancer. She wants to see me." He stood beside me. "What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I said. "Does that make me terrible?" "No," he said firmly. It makes you someone who learned to protect herself. For days I questioned myself. Should I go? Should I give her one last chance? Then I remembered what my therapist had told me. You don't owe anyone access to you, not even when they're dying. Especially not if they use their access to hurt you. I called my father back a week later. I'm not coming, I said. But tell her I forgive her. Not because she's earned it, but because I don't want to carry anger. Tell her I hope her treatment goes well. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. My boundaries stand. She'll be disappointed, he said quietly. She's been disappointed in me my whole life, I replied. One more time won't make a difference. Life continued. My son turned 8 and discovered drawing. My daughter turned 6 and switched from ballet to soccer. I supported both enthusiastically. Grateful they felt free to explore. The business opened a 7th location. 63 employees now, with healthcare, paid leave, and profit sharing. I'd become the employer I'd always wanted. One of my stylists, Mara, confided that her mother was pressuring her to give up the salon for the family business. She says I'm being selfish, Mara said near tears. That I should help family instead of strangers. I sat with her. Do you want to work in the family business? No, she said immediately. I love it here. But she makes me feel so guilty. Guilt is how people control you when they don't have an actual argument, I said. Your mother is trying to guilt you because she can't give you a good reason why you should give up your dreams for hers. She looked at me with wide eyes. You get one life, I continued. Don't give it up because someone else thinks their plans are more important than yours. She went full-time at the salon. 6 months later, she was leading our training program. My husband's parents visited that summer. They'd been supportive through everything. Never pushing reconciliation, never suggesting I was wrong. They were everything grandparents should be. Watching them with the kids, I felt awareness. My children would never have the grandmother I'd wished for, but they had the grandparents they needed. You did good, my father-in-law said one evening. With the business, the kids, everything, you should be proud. I am, I said, and I meant it. That Christmas, we started volunteering at a local shelter instead of obligatory family gatherings. The kids helped serve meals, handed out presents, sang carols. This is the best Christmas ever, my daughter said driving home, her face glowing. Better than presents, I teased. Better than boring family dinners where everyone's mad, she said seriously. I got occasional updates about my mother through Claire. Treatment was working, but slowly. My sister had moved back to help care for her. Your mother tells everyone your sister is such a devoted daughter, Claire told me over coffee. Unlike her older daughter who abandoned her. Of course she does, I said without anger. Just tired of the predictability. Does it bother you? Not really, I said. The people who matter know the truth. The people who don't won't listen anyway. That was my earned wisdom. You can't control what people think of you. You can only control who you give access to your life. I'd chosen carefully. I'd built a life surrounded by people who respected me, supported me, and loved me without conditions. That was more than enough. 5 years after the wedding that never was, I found myself in a shopping mall 2 weeks before Christmas. The kids needed new winter coats. My son was 11 now, tall and lanky, with his father's quiet confidence. My daughter was 8, channeling her energy into competitive soccer. We were walking past the food court when I saw her. My sister. She was sitting alone at a table, scrolling through her phone, a half-empty coffee cup in front of her. She looked older, tired. The perfectly curated image she'd always maintained was gone. She looked up. Our eyes met. My children, absorbed in conversation about which store to hit next, didn't notice. My sister stood. For a horrible second, I thought she might approach, but she didn't. She just looked at me, then at my kids laughing together. I saw something flicker across her face. Not quite regret. Maybe recognition, an acknowledgement of what she'd lost. Then she picked up her coffee, turned, and walked away. My son noticed me staring. Mom, you okay? Yeah, I said. I'm fine. Let's go get those coats. We walked away, and I didn't look back. Later that evening, after the kids were in bed, I told my husband about the encounter. How did it feel? He asked. Nothing, I said, realizing it was true. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. She was just someone I used to know. He pulled me close. That's healing. Yeah, I agreed. I think it is. My mother's cancer had gone into remission. I'd learned through Claire. She and my sister still lived together. My sister never remarried, never recovered from the divorce. She worked at a department store, blamed everyone but herself for how her life turned out. My mother continued telling anyone who would listen that I was the selfish daughter who abandoned her. Some people believed it. Most didn't anymore. The truth had a way of getting out. My father had reached out 2 years ago, asking if I'd consider bringing the kids to meet him. Just him, no one else. I'd thought about it, then declined. I don't think it would be good for them, I'd told him. They're happy. They're stable. He'd accepted it with sad resignation. I occasionally wondered if I'd been too harsh. But then I'd remember. I wasn't responsible for maintaining relationships with people who never protected me. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. 8 locations, 90 employees, 3 more opening in neighboring cities. I'd been featured in a business magazine. During the interview, they'd asked about my family. I have an amazing husband and 2 incredible kids, I'd said. That's my family. They'd pressed. What about your parents? Siblings? I learned everything I needed to know about family by creating my own, I'd said. They'd published that quote on the magazine cover. Kay, the woman I'd mentored, was now a partner. Mara managed 2 locations. I'd created opportunities for dozens of women to build careers, to break free from whatever was holding them back. That felt like legacy, like purpose. My kids had no memory of that wedding day. When they'd asked, I'd told them simple truth. My birth family made choices that hurt us, so we chose to build our own family. They understood. My son had his own friend group now, kids from school and baseball. My daughter had her soccer team, girls she'd bonded with through shared victories. They knew what real family looked like. Family that showed up, that supported, that loved without conditions. On Christmas morning, 5 years and a few weeks after that disastrous wedding, we woke up in our home. My husband made his famous pancakes. The kids opened presents. We video called my husband's parents in Florida. Then we went to the shelter, like every year. We served food, handed out gifts, sang carols. I'm glad we do this every year, my daughter said driving home. Me too, my son agreed. It feels good. You're part of a family that shows up for people, I told them. That knows love is about action, not obligation. That night, after the kids were asleep, my husband and I sat on the couch, the house quiet except for twinkling Christmas lights. Any regrets? He asked, checking in like he did periodically. None, I said, meaning it with my whole heart. Cutting them off was the best thing I ever did. Second best anyway, he smiled. What's the first? Marrying you, I said. He kissed me, and we sat there in peaceful silence of a home built on love, respect, and choices that protected rather than destroyed. I thought about my sister alone with her coffee, about my mother preparing some elaborate dinner to maintain appearances, about my father, passive as always, caught between the family he had and the daughter he'd lost. I didn't wish them harm. I genuinely hoped they found whatever peace they were capable of finding, but I didn't need to be part of their journey anymore. I had my own journey, my own peace, my own family, and that was more than enough. It was everything. It was everything.